A very good morning and thank you for joining us on the Uganda We Want here on Church of Uganda Family TV. My name is Muliisa, Philip Muliisa. This morning we are having a conversation on a matter rather so interesting but very relevant and indeed important for our country, and here we are doing youth in leadership in a changing world, and certainly a lot of things are changing in not just Uganda, not East Africa, not Africa, but the whole world. And here we are to bring you the perspective of youth leaders, of youth, but also people that are shaping things at that level in this country, to see what those changes mean for Uganda, what they mean for the region, for the continent, and certainly how Uganda can take advantage of some of them, but also how it can shield itself from being adversely affected by the effects of some of the happenings in the globe that we get to move. We get to see a country that progresses. I know the National Resistance Movement is running a project dubbed Transforming the Economy from 50 billion or thereabout to about $500 billion in the next 5 years, and if we have to do that, then we have to have a global perspective on all these issues and certainly see how we can be players in that system. And this morning I am privileged to host a panel of distinguished gentlemen who are here to share their knowledge, their thoughts, their perspective and opinions, but also recommending on what can be done, best practice for the Republic of Uganda, to see that at the youth level we can benefit from the new world. I have on my immediate right is Council Kalungi Henry Raymond. Council, good morning. You're welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you very much for hosting me. I'm glad to be here. I hope this will be a worthwhile show. And dear viewers, thank you for watching.
Thank you, Raymond. I also have Mr. Alex Wamakota. Now this man is in the money. He is the finance secretary for Budada District Youth Council, but also many other things. Alex, good morning. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Good morning to you viewers. As my brother Philip just introduced me, I'm Alex Wamakota. I'm the district finance secretary of the District Youth Council of Budada. They're in the hills. All you know about Budada is landslides, right? Yeah, I'm privileged to be part of this discussion, and I look forward to great deliberations.
We are happy to have you. And when you talk about landslide in Budada, there is a lot of other things that are either landslides or beyond landslides in the rest of the world. And if I can speak about 2 or 3 of them, for example, the both of you are aware of what is happening in the Middle East. Since 2022, we've had a war between Israel and Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, but also the West Bank. We now have a new war that is Israel, USA, Iran. We have had a war in Yemen. We have had uncertainty in Lebanon. The entirety of the Middle East and the Gulf region, there is turmoil. But also, even when you look at the other countries that have a semblance of peace, once in a while you have things that happen in that country that you cannot say that they are at peace.
Yes.
When you move out of there, move to Europe, Eastern Europe, you have a conflict, Russia, Ukraine. It has been going on since 2023, rather since 2022. The one of Gaza is the one of 2023. Out of there, on the African continent here, Sudan, you have war in Sudan. Go down to Mozambique, go to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, these are on the side of war. People are fighting, and I want to start with you, Henry. When you look at especially the developments in the Middle East, and you read the environment back home in Uganda, even at the level of understanding, at the youth level, do we have youth that first of all understand what is going on and actually realize that we have a duty, we are bound to listen to what is happening, to understand what is happening, and certainly know that it is even bound to affect Uganda at that level? What do you see?
Thank you very much. That is a broad question in line to the youth and in lines to the geopolitics of the world. It's notable to say that most of these conflicts, be it in Eastern Europe, be it in Sudan, be it in the Middle East, most of them, the largest number of participants are youths. And the largest number of people that are affected by these very conflicts are again youths, because you find out that the youths in Gaza have not been to school for a particular period of time. Their universities have been dismantled. And when you come to Uganda, first of all, we need to understand that all these different countries have different happenings. There was in the Middle East, I was on economics and was on ethnicity. When you come to Uganda, we do not have the economics that can currently lead us to war. But now it makes us borrow they might be called wise words of the president of Uganda, where he talks about the fact that we as East Africans, talking about the youth, because the main majority of this will then affect us, the youths. We are having a main problem whereby we do not have a space force. We do not have a navy. We have armies that are good at guerrilla warfare, but might not, engage in international warfare. If, let me say, America was to be annoyed with Uganda, let me say Uganda gets annoyed and they're like, we are not happy with the 10% of oil we are getting. We now want to have 50% of our oil. We might not have the capability to even resist. What this does for us, the youth, is that we now have to demand for other tangible things. Yes, our rights are important. Yes, freedom of speech is important. Yes, freedom of expression is important. But we need to pick a leaf from even these countries that are fighting in Eastern Europe particularly and in Middle East. These countries are willing to die for their identity. They are willing to do something. So we need to have a sort of patriotism that transcends our individual benefit, and we look at regional benefit, we look at national benefit. So I think youth should be in conversations whereby we demand our countries to put security at the forefront, and not the security of tear gas, of a few soldiers moving around with AK-47s, so that we are well suited for the modernity that we are going in.
All right, Mr. Wamakota, you see Budada, the youth of Budada, and largely the youth of Uganda, he talks about the participation of the youth in these countries. We talk about the Middle East. It is the youth that are fighting. It is the youth that are managing the technologies. It is the youth. We talk about the missiles flying over 2,000 kilometers, 4,000 kilometers. With cyber warfare, the other day I saw there was an alleged cyber attack in the United States of America, and it is being linked to Iran, a group of people that are connected to Iran. And when you look at the youth of Uganda, the youth of Budada, the youth of East Africa, because we want now to become an East African federation, what is our place in what is happening globally, and are we even aware that we have a position in this whole scheme of things?
Thank you so much, Philip. I think for a fact, in the first place, the youth are around 78% of our population. But I also want to presume that probably 95% of them do not understand what is happening in the world more so. Yes, they hear there is a war between Ukraine and Russia, because they see it on TV and so on. They'll know there was war in the Middle East, but they don't understand the genesis of this war. And then you cannot take a position on what you don't understand. That's why it's very hard to know. It's very hard to even understand that they have to take a position or they must have a say. But also given the position of the country, most of the youth will just have a perception, you understand? A perception of what they feel would be running in the Middle East.
Yeah, I've heard people who say, I am team this, I am team the other one.
Yes, and you might not understand why they are team this. You get what is happening in the Middle East. First of all, it's something our president has always been stretching and having discussions on during his campaign. That there is politics of identity, and then there is politics of interest. You get. Now we need to understand, as the young people of this country, as the young people of Uganda, what is our interest? Are we engaging because of identity, or we are engaging because of interest? There is one that is going to engage in that war because of identity. I mean, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Shia Muslim, so I associate with Iran. You understand? I'm a pro-economy, so I associate with the with the US. Now, the United States is entirely fighting an interest-based war. The US coming in to help Israel, it's fighting an interest-based war to push its...
But I think even Iran is fighting an interest-based war.
Now, Iran is fighting both. Iran, the genesis of this war initially is an identity war. It's to push the Shia dominance Islam in the Middle East. It's not the first time Iran is having issues with Israel.
But you see, Alex, and I want to disagree as I disagree with you. Iran is a country under attack.
Yes.
Even before we discuss its interest of Shia Islam and the dominance of the Middle East and the broader Gulf, they are under attack.
Yes.
They have to defend themselves. Is that not their right?
That's why I say they are fighting two wars. There is a genesis of that attack in the first place. We shall all, first of all, agree that in around 1950, when around 1953, when there was a discussion to have Israel as a state.
Actually, 48.
48, yes, 48.
47, of course, leading into 48.
Now, Israel starts to expand beyond where it's, given, and in this place, it wants to displace some people that have Iran's interests, where Iran is interested. So the war starts from there. Israel is also fighting a survival war.
Survival for what?
To exist.
To exist.
It's a survival war to exist.
So in other words, Alex, I want to pick from you directly before I come back to Raymond. Do you think that the attack on Iran is actually justifiable?
No, it's not justifiable.
Raymond, the legalese of it. We know that the United States and its partners are the leaders of what we call the free world. And in the last couple of months, not even years, we've seen them in Iran, we've seen them in Gaza, we've seen them in Venezuela, we've seen them in
Lebanon,
Greenland. They are now talking about Cuba.
They even want Rwanda.
What does that say about the free world to begin with, but also the relevance of international law in how the globe is managed currently?
International law sounds like a well-conducted orchestra. It has articulate principles, articulate terms, but that is not what the world operates on. The other thing is that many of these conflicts are normally ridden on narrative. So under international law, particularly the UN Charter, all peoples of the world, this was even part of the reasons why Africans got some semblance of independence. All peoples of the world shall have a right to have self-determination. I will have a right to believe in the Kabaka if I want. I will have a right to believe in African traditional society. I will have a right to be Christian. I will have a right to be Muslim. Now, the problem that we have is that some people have a superiority complex. They believe that my practices are better than his practices, or my practices should be better than this one. Now, the free world then imposes this colonial mindset. First of all, if you're to look at the conflict in the Middle East from its genesis, it's colonial. You're having your land for over thousands of years. The British come and colonize you. They get a shortfall in the First World War. They contact some rich big Jews. They make an agreement that if we win, we shall take you back to our colony in Palestine. They win the war. These people come and you have to honor the Biafra declaration and give us this country. They go to the country. Now, for example, in Uganda, let me use the simplest example Ugandan can understand. Colonialists come, they overthrow Kabaka Mwanga. Kabaka Mwanga was holding Uganda land in trust for all Ugandans. After overthrowing the Kabaka, they install their chiefs and give each chief square miles of land. Now, they are giving you that land, but it is having people. So some people are on that, they are giving you the land in 1915, but on that land, there are people that have been there even before the 18th century. They are having their graves, they are having everything there. But now this colonialist comes and gives these people land titles. So these people become slaves to the chiefs.
Survival
You
for the
have,
fittest.
you have to pay envujo, you have to pay busuru, all that. Now, the NRM government comes in and is like, no, all these people will have rights. Because there is no way you say that since the colonialists gave this one land, it will remove this one's interest. Yet the person has been there for thousands of years, they're having their graves there. That is the easiest example you can see. Now, Uganda sits down and is like, all these people be lawful occupants. For you to remove them from their land, you have to pay them. Now, in the Middle East, that doesn't happen. Someone just comes with a lot of guns, they displace people. Under normal circumstances, even if you're to get a child that is in nursery, you take away their samosa and give it to the next child. That child will always want to have their samosa back because it is their right, it is theirs. Now, arguments will come on, oh, the Bible, oh, the what, oh, the Torah, all this, all that will become a smokescreen. Now, to go to the deep interest, what the United States wants, they are not merely concerned whether the Shihads are having the entire Middle East, whether the Israelis are having it. Their interest is that if at all they have a strong Israel, they will have a strong control of the oil. Why? They will then dictate that all the oil shall flow in dollars. When you buy the oil in US dollars, it makes the economy strong because their economy will now run on that dollar. Countries like Iran are against that. They want their oil to be traded in their Iranian currency. They want their oil to be traded in the Chinese currency. And they want their oil to be traded in the Russian currency.
Yes, I've
think
seen,
that would
for
be the
example,
free
one
world.
of the declarations by the Iranian, I think it's called the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps,
Yes.
and they say we are allowing ships that are transiting oil through the Straits of Hormuz to China, to those friendly countries. But secondly, if you are willing to trade in Chinese currency, then it is okay. And I think it validates the point you are making.
Exactly.
But
Now,
yes, Alex, I want to pick from you. You see, and you've been a part of the leadership of the youth leadership of this country for some time now, and you understand we have many leadership levels at Youth Council, Students Association, many guild associations, a lot of leadership levels at the youthful level. And first of all, I've not seen any communication to the effect of what is happening globally, if it is the conflict in Iran or in Ukraine or wherever, from any sort of statement from some of these councils. But when you look the inside meetings of these organizations, do they paint a reflection of what is the role of us as the youth of Uganda in shaping what Uganda looks like? Yes, now, but most importantly for the future, looking at how the world is changing. We discuss the free world that is suddenly attacking everyone. We discuss a rules-based order that is violated by the very custodians. Do we look at that at the leadership level of the youth in Uganda? And if we do, what is our thought on it?
Okay, I think, first of all, I want to say I don't speak for the National Youth Council. Whatever I'm to say is entirely my thought. The National Youth Council has a publicity secretary. But as a youth leader that has been in this country for a while, I want to say these discussions exist. Though at an informal level, I think, we don't have formal grounds, because the idea is formal grounds come with so many implications attached to them. You're going to be on any formal ground, let's say the National Youth Parliament, and you have your position against the US. The next day you want to go to the US, and the embassy is telling you your visa process is still under review. So most of them try to, being young leaders, they can't tell what the future holds for them. They normally desist from formal discussions in regard to some of these international positions. But these discussions exist in our informal setups, fireplace conversations, with the fellow youth leaders. When we meet on casual days, we have youth leaders whom we discuss these things almost every time we meet. But it's not just about the Middle East. It has happened before, even when the US picked the Venezuelan president. All these things that are happening around the globe.
And you see, when you say that it does not happen at the formal level, should I then say that we have also adopted what the world is saying? We know, for example, at the global level, we have the United Nations that should be talking about some of these issues, but also taking decisions, especially at the United Nations Security Council. But we are also aware that the person of H.E. Donald Trump is proposing a board of peace that should take the decisions without approval of the United Nations, which means he has also disregarded the formal procedures. Have we adopted? Have we changed? Are we now there?
Now, what I was trying to come to is the formal ground and position by the youth. It brings you back to what I was telling you, is they get to now discuss what is their interest before they go public and formal over a certain position. What is their identity? Are they aligning by identity? Are they aligning by interest? And if they're aligning by identity, where are they falling? If they're aligning by interest, where are they falling? You get? So it also takes to a risk as you. We want to mostly agree that the biggest percentage of the young people that have been following this war understand that Iran is unjustifiably being attacked. But then, most of them coming up on formal platforms and say out these statements, they look at the long-term implication of whatever that they want to say. So they understand the implications of the war, they follow the war, but they also find no reason, I think, to even make a comment. You understand? They find no reason to even make a comment because of probably the implications that come with it. They also understand to some extent that even when they know the implications of the war, they might have little or no energy to change whatever the implication could be to them. So that is where the biggest position is, more so coming from a country that cannot take itself into such a war.
Exactly. And Raymond, coming back to you, you see, I know someone who severally says that he's interested in a weaker America, a weaker China, all those global powers, because it should be in the interest of Uganda and Africa. As the other ones are weakening, we become stronger. I don't know if you buy into that school of thought, but even broadening it, do you see any opportunities in all these things that are happening for Uganda and East Africa?
Yes, certainly I see very many opportunities. There is a proposal by this government to establish an airport that has 2 5-kilometer runways in Mbarara. And the idea is that planes that come from South America do not need to go to the Middle East to fuel up. They can come straight, land in Uganda, proceed. Now, currently, if you're to look at the Middle East, flights are delayed, some are cancelled because of these attacks. Now, if such hostilities continue and graduate to an extreme level, it can give us those opportunities. Now, investors that see in the future will find it that it's easier for me to have my $10 billion investment in an airport in Uganda rather than have it in the Middle East. So that becomes a plus. Secondly, it also awakens our leaders to understand these critical things. In 1962, countries like the United States were putting a man on the moon. First, we're fighting for independence. In 2026, countries are using drone warfare. First, we are having tear gas. So I think it awakens our leaders to start to think about the now and future problems. Where countries have a space force, we have an air force that has a few planes. So actually, look at how this war is being fought. No soldier is physically going to fight.
Yes.
You hear this one is sending rockets 2,000 kilometers. From 2,000 kilometers is like from here to Chinsasha.
Yes.
That is a very long distance. In a car, it can take you around 2 days to reach. But someone is throwing a rocket and it is taking them.
No, it's even beyond
15.
2 days, because I see people transiting from Kampala to Gulu or Kabale, and they are moving morning to evening. They're
Exactly.
still moving.
Exactly.
So if you are moving 2,000 or 4,000 kilometers, I saw Iran sending drones from Iran to Cyprus.
Exactly.
About 5,000 kilometers.
And that is happening in 15 minutes.
Yes.
What our president currently tells us is that someone is up in the sky looking at you like Obuka in his wording.
Yes,
so I
yes.
think such wars awaken our leaders, because some of these things are very expensive. When you look at these analysts analyzing, they say, oh, a 50,000 drone, blah blah blah.
Yes.
But 50,000, that is a V8. So that is very expensive, though it is looked at as a global scale as cheap. So it brings ideas of things like collective defense. The East African community can have a collective space force, a collective air force. So such things awaken us and remove us from the mindset of, I have a small randa of a few square kilometers, or I'm a big boss, blah blah blah. And now we start to think collectively, how can we survive? If we get Rwanda's defense budget plus Uganda's plus Kenya's, we can at least do something. So I think it's a win-win economically and strategically.
Thank you. And Alex, I was coming to you on that same line. We have seen these things. Some of the people have blamed South America, the turmoil that is there, and things like picking up Maduro to be taken just overnight, to the weakness of the nation, and the fact that these nations do not actually work together. The same has been said of the Middle East. They do not work together, they are weak. Therefore, anyone, America or whoever has that interest, Israel, can come in, and now there is a ground offensive by Israel in Lebanon, there is a ground in Gaza still, even when there is a ceasefire in the West Bank, they took over Jerusalem, a lot of these things. And for us as Uganda, what lessons, or do we even pick lessons of how we can improve what he's calling collective security? We talk about the East African community, we talk about the African Union, IGAD, COMESA, ECOWAS, a lot of these regional blocks. How can we leverage these blocks, but also looking at the lessons we get from there to see that we safeguard ourselves? Are we even looking at it in that direction, where I am team America, I am team because there is a missile or something? Where are we?
Thank you. There is one challenge I find, first of all, with developing countries. It's like saying, let the poor in Kampala unite and build something. First of all, they are in the first place thinking of Mereyalero and so on. So it becomes it becomes a project of the youth currently, if we are to do anything in the first place, because these are things we should be planning to be implemented or happen like in 30 years from now.
Yes.
Because the position we are in, some of the countries we are talking about have been there, but they had deliberate efforts to pull themselves out of that position. So the other biggest challenge is you cannot really be sure that the mind I have with Raymond to put Uganda at a certain level is the same mind a young man in Burundi has, or a young man in Rwanda, or Kenya, or TZ.
Alex, leadership and linking into Uganda is now, we chair the summit of the EAC heads of state, and that should give us a bit of influence in leading how the region should think and behave.
I'm coming to that. If you've followed this integration agenda, you'll agree with me that the president has really tried to make sure it moves at a faster rate, but it's not at the same rate because of so many factors. So many factors. There's a project. This country has invested. This one has boycotted. You get. So right now, within the region itself, we have countries that have a U.S. military base. I think we have one in Kenya, right? I don't know whether the U.S. in the first place can allow you to smoothly build a greater force for the region, because it doesn't work in their interest in the first place. If any country or any region is growing stronger security-wise, and for them they have a base there, it doesn't work in their interest. But also now this country that has a base, I don't think they will find it their interest as well to join this bloc. But that's why I told you it brings it to the youth. It's the young people of different countries that can understand the implication of whatever is happening 30 years from now, because they have a future to save, which the older leaders might not have. So if they realize that and they work towards that deliberately, when that time gets there, it's very easy to have these things in place.
All right, thank you so much. Now, colleagues, and this is a very beautiful conversation, and that we would really want to have even for the entire day, because it is very important. But we have about 6 minutes, and I'm going to give each one of you 3 minutes. Today, as the youth, as youth leaders, but also looking into government, what should we do? What can we do? What should be our behavior and conduct in the face of everything that is changing, including AI taking up space, including the leadership structures changing, UN becoming more and more irrelevant, issuing just statements? We don't like that, but it can't do anything. What do we do, Raymond?
Thank you very much. I first of all forgot to congratulate the youth about the nullification of the many repugnant sections of the Computer Misuse Act, and the nullification of the sections of the Penal Code Act that speak to libel. This is particularly good because these nullifications open up our spaces where we operate mainly on social media, on TV, and among other platforms. So first and foremost is that youth should speak up. If I, Raymond, I know these things and my fellow youth doesn't know them, it is a disadvantage. So the more we use these platforms to communicate, the more we use these platforms to talk, at the end of the day we can have a positive impact. We have seen a lot of youth-led revolutions. Even the one our country experienced was a youth-led revolution. So some of these things might not happen in the smooth track of people willing, negotiating and the like, but some of these things can be forced through revolution, the technological revolution. Forced our parents, they now have smartphones. So there can, if we have increased engagements, if we have increased participation, and lastly, let us continue to have education. Let us educate ourselves so that we are well suited. And let us not educate ourselves to the standards of our countries. Let us educate ourselves to the global standards. So because we have all the capacity, we have the internet and all. And above all, keep engaged and keep alive.
All right, and Alex, what do we do, you and the leadership? What do the youth of Budada do to see that they are not left behind, they stay relevant and indeed be equitable contributors to the global scene?
I think not only Budada, but the young people of the whole country. He was congratulating the youth on the
Computer Misuse Act.
The Computer Misuse Act, but me, I congratulate all Ugandans, including, nowadays we have, someone was saying there is a generation of parents that are on TikTok. But my idea is we have always had these spaces to have discussions. There's a time I was on a show, I think you're the one who hosted it, and we're talking about climate change and something. And one of the panelists that I had, just after we've stepped out, we bought water, we were both thirsty, and after taking the water, he threw the bottle on the street. So we have these spaces, we meet and discuss and go back to our comfort zones and sit. My challenge is, let the youth get deliberate on the country that they want and go practical about it. Let's walk the talk. If we feel like Budada has always had a problem of high levels of illiteracy and I want to change that about Budada, let's go practical about it. If we feel like this country needs to do something about the security sector, let the youth go heard about it, not hearing tomorrow there is a classified budget at Ministry of Defense, then we are making a lot of noise, but at the end, at the same time, we want the country to develop its security. So it's as simple as that. Let's go practical and we see how we can impact our country.
All right, let the youth go practical about the Uganda they want. Let the youth go out there and practice what we actually aware of, what we preach, and certainly what should be very, very beneficial to this country. Now, that is what we've heard from the gentlemen here discussing what the Uganda we want should look like, but also going forward, recommendations on what the conduct of the leadership, the conduct of the youth on the grounds, and certainly the conduct of not just Uganda, but the region and the continent. And you've heard some of the benefits that we can get to pick from the developments at the global scene. And indeed, we see that they are in the interest and benefit of Uganda. We head into a very, very brief break, and the Uganda we want will return with more conversation, new faces, and certainly new ideas. Welcome back from that very short break. It is the Uganda We Want here on Church of Uganda Family TV. My name is Muliisa, Philip Muliisa, and we are having a conversation around what the Uganda We Want should look like, but with a global perspective, and certainly looking at how youth in leadership should be behaving around the many developments around the world, including, for example, the wars that are happening in the different parts of the world. Whether you talk about the Middle East, you have more than 3 wars going on in that part of the world: Israel, Iran, Israel, Lebanon, Israel, Yemen. You talk about Israel and Palestine. You talk about things like the wars in Ukraine. You talk about developments like in Venezuela, having presidents picked up and arrested and taken into custody by a foreign government. You talk about a lot of these things and how they're shaping the world, but also looking at the changes in leadership structures across the world. We know that at the level of the East African community, for example, we have Uganda as the newly head of the summit of heads of state at the East African community. We know that there is a proposal at the global level to reduce the powers of the United Nations and certainly introduce something proposed by President Donald Trump called the Board of Peace. And what should that mean for the United Nations? Is the UN still relevant in the country and in the world? And going forward, how should Uganda look at all these issues? And certainly, do we have something to benefit? Are we losing out? Do we have opportunity to catch in? And certainly, does our leadership recognize these challenges, and are we going to work towards them? And in this second segment, I'm privileged to host a lady, Carolyne Ayot. She's a lawyer, she's a writer, but also the programs officer at the Center for Constitutional Governance. Nancy, greetings, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you for having this platform. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. And I want us to start from there, using the platform. A lot of things are happening. And when we're in 2026, we are certain that if I want to know what is happening in Kenya right now, I can easily get to know. If I want to know what is happening in Burundi, in London, it is easy to get that information. But oftentimes you realize that people, especially the youth, especially even in leadership, they are not aware of what some of these things that are happening in the world. I want us to start there. The youth that you interact with at academic level, at institutional level, from your work, in the workplace and everything, how much aware or unaware are they about some of the things that are happening in the world? Are they even bothered? Do they care?
Oh, thank you so much, Philip. When we talk about how aware the youth are, we have to understand that the average youth is on a digital consumption of endless information, okay? And the consumption is based on what is enjoyable to them or what is fun. And in that, we fail to recognize especially the patterns of misinformation, but also the patterns of undemocratization of the civic space that happens. There's a lot of propaganda going on. Especially, I talk from a governance perspective because I know that governance shapes the realities of everything else that we look at in the world, especially the wars in relations to the economies, the leaderships, and all of that. So right now, the deliberate misinformation it comes in such a way that the tech lords are directly connected to the powerful governments of the world and are funding them. And the biggest trend that is being funded is the far right conservative thinking, which is undemocratizing the civic space. Now, in terms of Uganda, a lot of work could have been done in trying to dismantle this by the civil society organizations, especially those who work in democracy. But from 2000, an Open Society report says that 2019 marked the 19th year in a row when democracy was being on a decline in the world. And the world superpower right now, who everyone relied on as the basis of democracy, the USA, is coming out as one of the most undemocratic countries, because against international law and against their own constitution. Their president has abducted another president, but also started a war in Iran. We have to be clear about that. So that means that even the funding of the civil society that was removed from US aid, but even coming more to other allies like NATO and the European Union, reprioritizing what funding means for civil society, it means that this is continuously on a decline. So you do not be surprised that, for example, a country can have elections and there is no real criticism of the maybe human rights violations or holding the country accountable. Because before that we had the ICC come in and make inquiries about a lot of things, but now that is not happening. So as the youth of this country, even the informed ones, we know there is propaganda, but that doesn't mean that if propaganda is there, you can recognize it when it's happening.
Well, and you speak propaganda, you speak the kind of information we are consuming, you speak governance and civil society and how it is shrinking and how democracy is not working out well in some parts of the world. And I want to ask at that level, what is the position and the role of youth, both those in leadership and those out of leadership, in, first of all, managing this situation that seems not moving in the right direction? What role can the youth play? And in any case, are they playing that role? Do you have youth that are already active and playing the role they have to play?
The youth of the world are overeducated and underemployed, but not educated in the right type of stuff. You get, just to put it simply. We understand that we need democracy, we need peace, we need movement building, but we do not understand the structural barriers that already exist. Earlier in February, there was the World Economic Forum in Davos, and Honorable Winnie Byanyima said that inequalities directly relate to democratization and violation of human rights. And while they were talking these issues, people related it strangely to only things such as gender equality and maybe LGBTQ rights, and let's especially with civil society movements, but also with youth groups. We've seen Kenyan youth coming into Uganda to support them, Ugandan youth doing the same, trainings across the borders, but also just responsiveness on the digital platforms when certain things go wrong. Whereas that is a good thing, I think it needs to be taken further. The pre-independence heroes of Africa did a lot of cross-border solidarity in order to see it move. Apartheid fell because the Africans were united, the Africans in the diaspora, the Africans in independent countries, and the Africans who are also still struggling for independence. There is need for cross-border solidarity for some of these things to happen. If something is going on in Kenya, you need to push the hashtag, because if you do not do it when it is your turn, they will not do it. Global pressure comes from how much information has been put out there and how much people, how together people are in a certain in pushing a certain type of struggle. We saw the war in Gaza because for the longest time in the Middle East has had consistent wars, but when the war in Gaza started in October 2023, the reason why it got the coverage that it did is because the people of Gaza, when they went online and started putting out videos, many people in the world rallied behind them, to the point that, the Prime Minister of Israel is now a war criminal who has
indicted by the ICC.
Who has been indicted by the ICC. So cross-border solidarity is important, but also education is important. We need to educate ourselves and unpack some of the things that we've already learned about the world, or the superpowers that be. Because for the longest time, people gave too much power to the Western allies, especially the people under NATO. And now we need to realign ourselves. Uganda right now stands as the leader of the non-aligned movement, and I honestly expected a bigger response from the country, considering the fact that Iran is part of the non-aligned movement. And this could help, because in the same spirit, in the same spirit, if, for example, the president of Uganda was taken out of State House, we would expect the non-aligned movement to come up and say, you know what, the sovereignty of a state has been violated. So there is need for that type of realignment. But also we have to understand as African youth who our allies truly are and what type of bargaining we want. Because however much we see new alliances coming up, NUM, even the BRICS for that matter, we need to understand the African position in this and strengthen our solidarity within Africa, because African problems are uniquely African.
You speak this solidarity and you talk about cross-border movement and working together, but how easily and how much of working together can we do, and what should drive that working together? If Ugandans have interests, Kenyans have interests, Burundians have interests, Rwandans have interests, what is that common thing that should bring the youth of this region, for example, together, that they realize we have this challenge and we can work around it?
Our challenges are very much the same. All of us want democratic society. We want financial independence and economic sovereignty for ourselves. We want that. And why would we not try to push for better policies in our different capacities? For example, I happen to belong to a youth group that is working on a regional roadmap for democratic participation of young people in East Africa. The movements in Kenya have strengths that we do not have. They have strengths in organizing, but also in being fluid in their organizing. Organizing can mean that sometimes you don't have to have one leader, because when you do that, you're easily clamped down when they take away your leader. Organizing can also be in terms of what space you give somebody. It could be secret. And it doesn't have to be out there that, oh, I am updating a post, now we're in Kenya. Sometimes some of those things give you away. But also the structure type of organizing, which is what had been being led by civil society organizations, cannot happen anymore. And
again, feeding into that, you spoke about, for example, organizations like the non-aligned movement, which Uganda chairs now. We do chair the East African community. We are members of the African Union Security Council. A lot of these, we are leaders in some organizations at the United Nations. For example, Uganda chairs the board of UN Women currently.
Yes.
Is there opportunity for Uganda to leverage some of these leadership positions to influence and drive these changes that the young people are looking for? But secondly, the young people and the youth we talk about, when you go in the sides of government, for example, you have youth that are in leadership, members of parliament, commissioners, etc., that are youth. You go to civil service, you have youth in the armies, you have youth in the different sectors of the economy. But also on the other end, you have youth that are unemployed, you have youth that are on the streets, youth that are basically not active. What is stopping the youth that have gotten into the positions from creating the transformation that should drive the Uganda we want and see that it is a reality now? Because we have them there, and
yes,
for the longest time.
And you're right. That is where we address things like structural barriers. Because, for example, we have 78% youth, and what we have are 5 members of parliament, all 5 reserved youth seats in the legislature. Do they have the voting power to actually push a policy if, say, the whole house was against them? They do not. But also, the culture of tokenism is something we need to realize is going to destroy us. Because if you have token bodies that actually say they represent youth, and that is maybe the place where people get pocket money, it means that when the pocket money runs out for those people, we are all out in the cold. So the thing is for us to just do more continued advocacy to continued advocacy to win over people on the other side, but also to push our agenda meaningfully, we have to talk to each other. One of the things that saddens me about Uganda's democratic space is the fact that once you're in government and once you're in the opposition, you're not talking anymore. We are human beings. They have their side of the story. However much they look like they are with your oppressors, we need to leverage dialogue, because we cannot afford to go into other means such as violence. That is something we've already debunked as horrible for the country and does not lead to real solutions. We need intergenerational conversations, but also conversations about what a transition could look like in any particular country or in any particular new world order for that matter. So isolation of people creates more divides and gives a person the people who are actually winning, which is the minority rich, the power to actually enslave everyone else. So it is important for people to have conversations, but also in the process of organizing, to have dialogues with your enemies.
All right, and it is very important for people to have conversations and certainly see how we forge a way forward for what the Uganda we want to deliver for not just ourselves but for the next generation, how it should look like and how it should feed and certainly serve its people. And at this moment we head into a very, very short break, and certainly the Uganda we want will be returning to draw conclusions and certainly recommendations for how it should look like. Welcome back from that very, very short break, and we are still on the Uganda that we want, the Uganda you want, the Uganda I want, and the Uganda that should serve its peoples. My name is Muliisa, Philip Muliisa, and this morning I'm privileged to host two ladies on the panel, Nancy Carolyne Ayot, that you've been listening into, and we have also been joined by excuse me, Oprah Nkalubo. Oprah is a lawyer, Oprah is a leader and the director legal at the National Unity Platform, Makerere University Chapter. Oprah, greetings, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
And I'm starting with you. We've heard from Carolyne quite a bit, and a lot of things are happening in the world. And it is so good that you have a constituency among other areas in the higher institutions of learning. In the universities, you get to have conversations around this in the debating associations. I know you're active in that area and so many other areas. I want to first of all pick your assessment and certainly the view of yourself and the people you operate with. A lot of things happening across the world, from wars to changes in leadership, to changes in financial systems, to changes in technology. All of these are happening. The people, yourself and your people, first of all, are we aware of these changes that are happening in the world? Have they had an impact so far onto us in the societies you are in? But even going forward and broadly, how should they respond to some of these changes? Oprah.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Nkalubo Oprah. The female GRC for the Makerere Debating Union, but I also serve as the Director Legal for the National Unity Platform in the Makerere University Chapter. Today's topic is quite interesting because there's a lot that is changing every single day, and we as young people have a critical role to play. I just want to give us a sort of like background about what's happening within the world and how we youth are best placed in that area. In Uganda is one of the countries with the youngest population, but also if you look globally, the world has a young population. Most of the people in the world, over the 8 billion people in the world, young people make up the biggest percentage. And because we are that huge in number, it shows a lot of potential, but it also shows our risk in the future if we are not able to group, if we are not able to take these youth to the places that they ought to be, because within 10 years, 5 years, these young people are the ones that are going to now be taking on mantles of responsibility, of decision making, and things like that. So if we are looking at a global aspect and we are saying that almost 50% of the people in the world are currently young people, and Uganda is one of the countries with that large demographic of young people. What does that mean, especially for Uganda? You'll see that for developed countries or even countries that are developing within East Africa or Africa, they have gone on to invest in young people, whether it means directly including them in leadership structures, having them one-on-one with policymakers, with their leaders. They have created that sort of inclusion. But even when it comes to investing in education, which is very critical for a young generation, or even providing employment and proper employment that meets the digital needs, that meets all these different things that the global world is taking on today. Countries have invested in these things, and now if we are competing at a global stage, what does that mean for young people? If we look at it in the Ugandan context, I would like to say that Uganda still has a long way to go, because if we are saying that in the next 10 years, because if we look at Uganda, we have about 70% of the population is below 30, and you have the ones that are 18 to 30 years, that's about 22% of the population. So it means surely by the next 10 years, these are the people that are going to be the economists, these are people who are going to be the leaders, these are going to be people in different spheres. But if at this point in time, where we are in 2026, if we have not taken deliberate steps to educate, deliberate steps to skill these young people, to let them know what's happening, to give them the digital skills, to talk to them about environmental knowledge and all the things that are affecting the globe, things like peace building and peacemaking, then we still have a long way to go. And I just want to let us know that things like education, youth inclusion, all these things cannot be done without the young people. It is so sad that the people at the helm of policy making or at the helm of making decisions that are supposed to affect young people, actually people that are adults, these not adults per se, but these are people who are, much older, people who are 50 years and above. So because they are the ones that have the power making ability or the policy making ability, there is no way they are going to delegate on issues or even create policies that can favor the young people, because they don't know what young people are going through.
Oprah, if you allow me, especially at the point of decision making, when you say the power to take these decisions is in the hands of the aged, above 50 and above, 60 and above, one would want to disagree with you and say, when, for example, I look at the Parliament of Uganda, you have a series of young people in there, save for the reserved seats for the young people. You also have others that have won the direct seats at Parliament. Go to the ministries, you have young people below the age of 35 that are commissioners, that are directors, that are serving in the technical branches of the MDAs. Go to for example, the military, the Uganda police, you have youth in there that are serving. Go to local councils, you have youth that are serving in the local councils. But even where they dominate in terms of numbers, there seems to be no change. And one asks, is it even important to have them there if the little they have dominated, they have failed to transform? How do you respond to that?
I think we have to differentiate between having a position and actually having the power or the authority that position necessitates. And we have to also recognize that the positions that we're talking for are more or less like tokens, and they're also very few in number. You find that young people are occupying these seats not for them to effect any form of change, but because they have to survive, because this is the only platform that they have gotten, but they also have needs that they're pressing them. They've not been skilled to even lobby for funds or make policies, make concept notes. They've not even gone to the ground and found out what issues are affecting young people. So you find that even with the few offices that young people have been given, there is still a gap in terms of skilling, in terms of the knowledge that they need to be able to now affect somebody at the grassroots level. And even then, they don't have the power within themselves, because there is a higher controller, there's a higher person within these spaces, and these are the people that are over 50, and you find that young people cannot really express themselves. They don't have that opportunity to have a roundtable conversation with these leaders and have their voices heard in meetings that actually matter.
Yes, thank you. Nancy?
Yes, please.
Look here. We are talking how young people in Uganda, for example, can leverage the challenges or even the good things that are happening elsewhere in the world to advance agenda Uganda and influencing what the future Uganda should look like, the Uganda we want, how it should look like. And I ask, government has told us that over now 90% of Ugandans are educated. Government tells us majority of those are still below the age. Okay, let's push it even higher to 40. How does a youth in Uganda, in Karamoja, in Masaka, in Mbarara, in Gulu fit into the global scheme of things, fit into with the youth from London, from China, who is doing much of their work using artificial intelligence? They have access to reliable internet, they have access to all these gadgets that are very modern, and they can do their work with that much ease, including policies that allow them. What chance does the youth in Uganda have to compete with that youth?
Well, digital transformation is a huge part of how the world is moving, especially to things like automation and the digital economy as well. So the relationship between the global powers and the amount of monies they have to actually drive that transformation is the power they hold over the African youth or the African countries, for that example. And a young woman, a young man from Gulu, from Karamoja, from wherever, is a direct participant to who holds powers to make those decisions. That is why it is very important for us to talk about the participation in democratization of any country, because only in democratization can we push for policies that move us from survival
to thriving. And in survival, we have to think about the dignity of work that we do as young people. But you see, Caroline, again, one will say that, okay, you want policies that regulate technology, but you, the very young people that are asking for these policies, have not even done enough in inventing the technology you want to regulate.
I believe that is just a lack of opportunity for a lot of young people, because the same opportunity that is, the reason why we have a lot of brain drain is because there is not enough opportunity for young people in Africa to thrive in Africa. So they go elsewhere to seek opportunity, and many of them actually thrive. So if they actually gave young people the opportunity to thrive, and if young people allowed themselves to actually have the conversations that put them in rooms.
Government is going to tell you, Caroline,
yes,
that we have put up a series of things to empower, to support the young person through the Youth Livelihood Fund, through the Parish Development Model, through Emyoga, and they have also put in place a conducive environment to allow you go to education, be healthy. They have immunized you. And what have you done after education? The choice is, I've had a government official who says, you've made a choice, instead of benefiting from Uganda, you are going to the Middle East for employment. How do you respond to that?
It is not a choice. It is not a choice, especially when we're in this late capitalism age. The environment of work, that's why I talk about the dignity of work. The environment of work is so harsh. People are underemployed, which means maybe they earn less than 500,000 shillings. What can you do with that income? But also things like the youth livelihood programs and all of those. How much scrutiny has been done into the effectiveness of these programs? That is why youth voices are important. It's why you need to come back and say, we are a group of youth from this and this place. We got in touch with this program and it didn't work out for us. And people may think, the government is so harsh, whatever. And to be clear, I'm not a pro-government person, or I'm not speaking on behalf of government. But I believe that the leaders in many of these institutions have a room to actually listen to some of our grievances. They will not do 100% of everything, but they have room to actually give us opportunity to thrive on certain things. So in order for us, we cannot not try and then say that it's not working. We have to actually try to make this work, so that if it's not working, then you can innovate new strategies of actually getting your voices heard. But for me, the main focus of these things is democratization of different places of the countries, because that's how we can hold people accountable. That's how we can hold the tech companies accountable. That's how we can also dignify our work and put our grievances. We can bring up things like minimum wage for different individuals, but also the exploitation of talent and the copyright laws. We can be able to effectively use them if we are in position to actually interact with the powers that be.
Oprah, look here, and I know you might have a couple of things to add to that, but most importantly, it is true that the world is changing. The leadership is changing. We are seeing every other day the role of the United Nations reducing in the different countries. We are seeing a world where every country is choosing to behave independently of the others. And as a youth leader in Uganda, and broadly all the other youth leaders, what should be their role? What can they do? What should be done to see that Uganda, first of all, is not left behind? We stay competitive at the global stage, but also making sure that Uganda is actually growing, because it has to grow. If it doesn't grow, then the youth in Uganda doesn't grow, then the country is there. We don't want to be speaking of a third world country forever.
That is so true. But the power of young people lies within themselves, but they also don't work in isolation. Because as I mentioned earlier, young people need to be invested in. Young people need support. Things like education. My comrade was talking about education and how there is a gap between, you look at what a student studies in China or in Kenya, and then when you weigh it up with what the same student, same age will be studying in Uganda, you'll find such a divide. And I think that's because our education system or framework is not tailored to the needs of the day. You'll see that we are shifting into a digital age, but the things that we keep, the things that we learn, the things that we are taught, you find that you cannot apply them in today's world, and yet this is what lots of children spend their time on. And you'll also find that as children keep growing, our education system is tailored for them to cram certain things, not to understand, not to form projects or carry out extensive research and be able to foster their own projects. But now they just have to cram what they're taught in class, have a few group discussions here and there, and that's it. And yet other countries invest heavily in research. They invest in carrying out projects, in prototypes and things like that. So it creates better leaders, and on all, in every sector, on all levels, whether it's economics, whether it's politics, whether it's tech. So I think that there is that divide. And until we address the education gap, it is going to be so difficult to get a youth to where we want them to be, or even a youth leader. Because after you have invested in proper skilling and proper education, then you are sure that the product that you have brought out is a product that is going to face the world's realities for what they are, and they can offer solutions, because it's something that they've been doing for a long time. They are not just cramming and then entering a new workspace, and they are completely shocked by the realities that they find there.
There is a new government policy, for example, in the education, if we take that sector, and they say we are now running two academic programs. The traditional normal education system, you go into primary school, secondary, and to the university. But now there is also the technical vocational vocational education and training. And the government says it is actually okay now. You can go away from P7, get into technical education, and you continue all through to the university. And do you think this is going to be a game changer for the Uganda we are trying to create, one that serves not just in the politics, but in the business sector, in the technology sector, and all that? Is it going to be a game changer?
It definitely. And I was going to touch that in my submission, because I think one of the challenges that we have is that these vocational and technical skills parents do not know about them. They think that when your child takes that route, they have become a failure in life. Because for a long time, we have spearheaded the traditional form of education. And now when vocational skills are actually important, and because the world has evolved, and now these are the things that you need. And now it is so difficult for parents to now change their minds. So I believe government needs to do a lot, and other civic movements and NGOs need to do a lot in sensitizing young people, in breaking that stigma, because you'll find that these hands-on skills, by the time a person is age 16, which is ideally supposed, if you compare a person who is going to a technical institute age 16 and one who is going through traditional system, you'll find that one at age 16 can probably do so much. You know, if they are into electricals, you find that at that point they can even make bulbs. They've already invented certain things. You see, if they are taken into issues to deal with fashion, you would see that is a growing sector. For example, if you look at Nigeria, it is one of the things that heavily contributes to the GDP is the world of fashion and clothing and hair, you see. And yet those are things, when you come in the Ugandan aspect, they're undermined, they are looked at as, you know, you failed in life. So if we can do a lot of sensitization, but then also support and not just teach, but also I'm very heavy on putting money into funding, into innovation. I think Makerere University in its research projects has done that. You find that they do invest a lot into innovations, whether at medical school or at the College of Engineering, and students have been able to come up with very unique ideas. If you go to College of Agricultural Studies, you'll see the things that that young people have come up with, and you'll be shocked. But then what happens along the way is that due to lack of support, you find that now foreign entities come and buy these ideas from them, and then you find a foreign entity taking on an idea of a young person, and then they incorporate the person into their company and then pay them less than even what they're supposed to be getting.
All right, thank you. And when you say that, most
bit?
Importantly, we have a new agreement with the United States of America, for example, in the health sector, that dictates that, for example, much of the research we do in that area is actually not owned by us. It is, but yes.
Yes, I have a small, whereas I agree with my fellow panelists that we need education, I still insist that these things can only effectively work when we have a government that is responsive to the needs of our students. For example, these vocational skills that are being trained, I would kid you not, that when a child fails at A level or at P7, that is when they divert them. That's when they divert them and say, you can now go for vocational skills. Excuse me, it means that the brightest brains and the best talent has been pushed to things that they probably do not want. There is no real system that identifies talent and smartness. So it means that what we are going to get at the end of the day is mediocre stuff. Also, that sector is not formally recognized even. You will find that good boys who would have made, boys and girls who would have made good, incredible mechanical engineers. One, they did not go to school, so they did not hold a certificate. They learned on the job, which is a good thing. Apprenticeship is a very good thing because it means that you've learned a lot of things and you have the experience. However, because they do not have the papers, they are underpaid and will continue to be so. So also things like fashion and they are not recognized, and therefore they will not get the legal protection that those people need. So it means that a contract could not even be formally enforced. But also, as young people, we need to decolonize our thinking a lot.
Definitely.
To decolonize our thinking to meet our current realities, the African realities. That means that we have to go back to the drawing board and understand what actually works for us.
All right, very importantly, and it's important. It's good that the both of you are talking about the technical education, and to the same effect, I think government has a policy, but they have also enacted a law last year, the Technical Vocational Education and Training Act 2025. And some of the things it has to address is these gaps in the education. Having, like you say, the intelligent people, but they are simply there, they cannot put their intelligence to practical work, and that affects the progress. But I want to shift you a little bit to another sort of arrangement. You see, if a nation has to progress, if the young people have to make a contribution, part of that is discipline, part of that is morality, part of that is order. And those are vacuums that largely society has lost. Uganda, East Africa, Africa, and the entire world. And I want to ask from you, the both of you, morality, discipline, order in our society. What happened? You look at ordinary, typical youth in the society, they wake up in the morning, randomly in a gaming club, and the kind of language they use, they have no plan of what to do in the day. There is no consistency in what they do. What is that? Is that going to deliver the Uganda we are looking for? Oprah?
I think, you see, we look at these things from the outside, but we don't really scrutinize what the foundational problems are. You see, Uganda is a country that suffers with a high rate of unemployment, and it's the young people actually that are unemployed. So it means that they are not operating at full capacity. They're just there. They don't know how to put their minds and brains to work. So what happens is that they end up in all these facades. You find them in baiting gimmicks and all those different establishments. But then we have to realize as young people that the power to change our situation belongs to us. And though you may not have the opportunity to probably have a white collar job or have a 9 to 5 or whatever you see as having an employed life or a life that leads to profit, it's important that we do not waste away. It's important that we look at what we can do. I believe government has created a number of opportunities for young people. Of course, there are lots of gaps within how those different initiatives materialize, but then they are there. And as young people, it is important for us to look out for these opportunities. And it is on platforms like this, for anyone that is watching us here today, that things like PDM exist, Emyoga exist, there are presidential initiatives on skilling. All these things are available and at our disposal. You can even find that, there is one in, right next to you, but you're just not aware. So instead of using our gadgets, our mobile phones to place betting gimmicks or sit in clubs from morning to evening or carry out theft and whatnot, I think let us use this digital age to research and find out what opportunities are there for us and try our best to reach out for them.
Caroline, discipline, morality, that mix of things.
My answer is going to be a little bit different from hers, and not because I disagree with her. There are many certain youth who are aimless, reckless, and some even incapable of being saved at this point, okay? Like by what's happened, by standards
of being saved.
Yes.
What is that?
No, I'm just saying that the state at which they've gone, especially mentally, but also financially, they might need to do a few years in jail and see how they can recover from the recklessness of their actions as adults. However, here is my point. The thing of discipline, morality, and order, I feel like as a nation which is diverse, like Uganda, the only morality we need to have is that you should do as little harm as possible, or none at all, to another person, okay? You should aim to do as little harm as possible to somebody else. However, morality is such a strange topic for us, because morality can be the way somebody dresses, the way somebody speaks, but since we are from different backgrounds, we cannot ideally dictate for every person how they should do these things. But if
Uganda is a country of faith. We have the different religious organizations, whether you speak of the Catholics, the born-again movement, Anglican Church, the Islamic faith, Adventists, many. What is their role in this? Are they able to bring us back to order?
No, because many times, as a scholar of democracy, many times people have used faith to justify some of the most cruel and inhuman things that have happened in this world. Even the religious wars that happened in Uganda between the Catholics and the Protestants was gross, because it legitimized othering people, that these people, because they do not conform to the way we believe, they deserve to die. That is why I said we should approach the issue of morality with caution, considering we are very diverse. Respect where other people come from, but the only thing we have to agree on is that you do not have to do harm to society. For example, as a person living in this economy, we expect you to contribute to it. So you need to earn money in order to buy your food, because people are selling food to earn a living, but also to pay your bills, because you're not living somewhere on credit all your life. And if you're on credit and you fail to pay, please serve your time. okay, because you've wronged somebody, or we do not expect you to come out and be abusive towards somebody else. There is consequences for that, and that's where maybe our laws can come in. However, I hope we do not discuss morality in such broad context, but religious leaders, if we think about it, they have also played a good role when they can. When they can. And in this good role, I hope they can emphasize unity among people, but also celebrating our diversities and coexisting in our diversity, encourage dialogues.
All right. And Oprah, yes, and this is a beautiful conversation, but like always, there is always a time limit to how long we can go for a conversation like this one. And I see we have about 4.5 minutes to be out of here, so I'm going to give each of you 2 minutes by way of concluding the conversation. How do we move forward?
All right, so thank you so much. The question of moving forward, as I've been mentioning throughout this conversation, that the power lies with us as young people. But more than that is that the people in power have a responsibility towards this greater demographic, this large demographic, to make sure that we invest in them, we groom them and grow them, that tomorrow or in the future they can be the best that they should be. So out of this conversation, I think it is important that we leave today's space knowing that youth inclusion is very important. It is not just about having slots in parliament. It's not just about having people as commissioners or as ministers. It goes far deeper from the title to actual power, to actual authority to create this change. So that looks like having young people in board meetings with the people that are aged, with the people who have the experience in these things, and hearing from the young people. What is the plight of the young people? You see, whether it looks like their leaders, the representation of their leaders, and having them air out the views of the young people, doing intense research. This goes back to us as young people. We have to do research. It's not just about, oh, I was voted by my constituency, so you assume you know what affects them. Or you put your papers out and the HR decided to give you a job in a government office. I think it goes deeper than that. It goes into research, finding out exactly what these young people are going through, hearing their voices, going to the grassroots, so that you're able to speak from an informed point of view, and you're not just speaking in generic, but you're speaking what actually affects the people. So that goes back to us as young people. So we need to invest in ourselves. We need to invest in those that are not in the positions that we are in. But even then, the people that are aged in these positions need to give room, need to give space, and implement what young people are saying. I feel so bad when I see something like the National Youth Parliament having discussions and forums and all these things, and when you really look around, it's just, a bunch of young people saying the best ideas ever, but there is no one there is no stakeholder, there is no policy manager, there is no one who is going to see that these things are actually affected. So you see a lot of effort, a lot of finance being put in, and yet these are just going to remain words, even when it comes to a parliamentarian, because there is little that there's little that they can do for the grassroots. Because if you're in parliament and all you're going to say is, oh, young people need this, there's this problem, it's a lot of talking but less action. So that's why I'm saying that even when we are given opportunities to be on these platforms, we need to do deeper research so that we are presenting solutions and not just saying problems. That even when we are presenting these solutions, we are able to lobby for them and actually see that real change comes to pass. But as young people, we have a role to play. The aged also have a role to play in helping us reach where we're supposed to be in the near future. I think that's important. Sure.
All right, and Caroline, way forward.
Yeah, thank you very much. I believe that our biggest solution in any time is democratization of our systems. I'll share a quote by Winnie Byanyima again. Extreme inequality and democracy cannot coexist for long. There has to be a choice made. Either equality, either greater equality, or less democracy. It is at the heart of the human economy as well. So accountable democratic governments are the most powerful equalizing force that humanity has ever invented, and they can solve these problems for us. Because if we create systems that are accountable, that hold people accountable, we will be able to, put some of our problems to rest and maybe invent better solutions that work, because solutions can only work in systems that are accountable. So for me, it is for the young people, first of all, to decolonize their politics outside of what the US and the thingy are saying. You need to understand their interests in our national politics, but you also need to understand the interests of their opponents in our national politics and think about what our lived realities are, because that is where we're going to get our interests from. So we democratize our processes. That is
We democratize our processes. Nancy, Carolyne Ayot, thank you so much for those thoughts and for making time to join us today. And Oprah Nkalubo, thank you so much for your thoughts and for joining us this morning. And certainly to Alex, Wamakota, and Kalungi, Henry, Raymond that were with us in the first hour of the conversation. Thank you so much. You have done us so well. But also to you, our amazing viewers, thank you so much for keeping it the Uganda we want, because we have to create it. And like you heard from the panel here, it is our duty to create that Uganda. Special thanks to the Interreligious Council of Uganda for being a part of this journey of creating the Uganda we want, and certainly being a part of this conversation. And to you, the technical team, the production team, and everyone, thank you so much. And here we are at the end of the conversation, and I should say see you next time, but do stay with Family TV for more of our programming.